Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Economic Club of Florida's 584th meeting in our continuing series of distinguished speaker programs. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
So they can't, oh, you can, but you can't back there. Can we turn this up a little bit? Or is it? What's that? Okay, you told me she's excellent. Well, while we're waiting for that, I'm Katrina Roll, and I have the honor of serving as this year's club president. And I hereby call this meeting to order. Would you please silence your cell phones so that our program is not interrupted? And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. There we go. That's good. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin today's program, I'd like for us to take a moment to extend our thoughts and support to those impacted by Hurricane Milton. Please join me in a moment of silence as we acknowledge the challenges that those communities will be facing as a result of this devastating storm. Thank you. So you may have noticed an empty seat at the head table, which is reserved for our speaker, Meredith Berger. Unfortunately, Hurricane Milton came into effect, and our commitment was to Meredith's safety. So we had to make a last-minute adjustment to the program. And as a result, Meredith is going to be joining us virtually, sharing her insights with us, and allowing us to benefit from her expertise while focusing on her well-being. She can hear everything we're saying. Oh, there she is. Hey, Meredith, how are you? Okay. So Meredith serves as the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy, Installation, and Environment, and will be formally introduced by Dr. Ray Five shortly. Our remaining schedule for this year is as follows. On November 21st, Don Cohen, CEO of Margaritaville Holdings, will be our luncheon speaker. And on December 3rd, we will have a holiday reception and elections. So we hope that you can make both those events. Information is on our website, but you'll also be receiving emails from us as well. So our Economic Club of Florida sponsors are very important, part of our club's success. We give a special thank you today to Hancock Whitney for being a sponsor. For those of you in attendance today, we do have sponsorship opportunities for 2025. If you or your company are interested, please see me or any of our board members or Lisette and those at the table. Lisette is raising her hand as well. So I'd like to take a moment to recognize our trustee members. Our trustee members provide additional financial support to the club each year. And in return, they get to attend free luncheon receptions to meet with our speakers in our one-on-one or a small intimate setting. But they are also invited to events that we host from time to time. Last week, our trustees were invited to a special luncheon featuring Mark Calabria, a former Florida Housing and Finance Agency director and former chief economist to a former U.S. vice president. If you are a trustee, would you please stand so that we can recognize you? And Dave, Michael, could you stand one more time? Today is Dave's birthday. Somebody told me that happy birthday, Dave. So I'm told we have a number of guests with us today. We'd like to have them introduced. I'm going to start, Ray, because you have some folks that you want to introduce.
Yes. Thank you, Katrina. I have two guests here today, Dr. Stacy Patterson and Dr. Charles Weatherford. Stacy is the Vice President for Research at Florida State University. Charles is the Vice President for Research at FAMU. And let me just take 1 second and say, all of you are looking for economic facts. These two institutions give you some idea of the impact they have. Bring in every year over $500 million in research funding. The vast majority of that coming from Washington, D.C. So thank you both. Thank you, institutions and your faculty.
So we'll go to this table. Anybody, any guests at this table? No. Table over there? Oh, I'm sorry, here, go ahead. Mario Gonzalez. Mario Gonzalez, thank you. Ben?
So I have with me today Charlie Yaden, who serves a very valuable function for me in the state because he's the brains behind our operation.
This table?
So I'm Meredith Berger, and my guest today is my husband, Phil. He's a veteran of Naval.
All right, thank you. Right here, Paul?
I've got two of my colleagues from Hancock with the bank, Sam McMillan and business banking, you know, they're able to put together commercial banking.
Thank you.
My name is Meredith Berger, and I have with me today, not in any case. In my treasure and.
Awesome. Anybody else on this side? Okay, right here. All right. Anybody else on this side before I move to this side? Okay. Low.
Good afternoon. So continuing with the Brave Eyes theme, we have with us today Kathleen Daly. She is the interim director of FSU's opening nights. We have Jamal Soul, who is here as the brand spanking new vice president of government relations for FAMU. I also have Charlie Redding, retired civil engineer. Thank you.
So I'm just gonna add, so Kathleen and I served on the board a gazillion years ago, right? Yeah. And then Jamal and I served on the University of Florida Alumni Association board together as well. Barney, anybody at your table? Bobby Long, anybody at your table? I'm sorry? Oh, go ahead. Hey,
Hi, I'm Sadie Proctor, and I have my husband Collins here with us today. He's a principal with Facility Solutions Management.
hey, Carly. Raise your anybody at your table? Okay. George,
I brought my partner Tyler Houston today.
all right. Did we miss anybody? So to our guests, we hope you will consider joining us. There are membership applications at the table out front, and they're also on the website. So again, let's give our guests a round of applause. Thank you. So at this time, I'm going to introduce our head table, and I'm going to start with Marion Hoffman. She serves as this year's chair of the Economic Club of Florida and has been a longtime trustee of the club. She was recently selected to serve as the inaugural executive director for the Arrhythmia Intervention Society. This is a new national nonprofit led by top cardiologists from around the country who are focused on advancing patient care through education, research, and advocacy for the cardiac interventional electrophysiology community. Woo, I said it. Prior to her new role, Marion has held key roles in both the public and private sectors, including Enterprise Florida, the University of Florida, Burger King Corporation, the Florida Legislature, and the Florida Cabinet. She's also a former chair of the Northwest region for the University of Florida and a past president of the Governor's Club Board of Directors. Dr. Ray Bond. Ray has had a distinguished career in scientific research, research administration, and U.S. science policy, serving both the National Science Foundation and Florida State University. At NSF, Ray dedicated over 2 decades, including more than 12 years as director of the Office of Legislative and Public Affairs. In 1994, he transitioned to FSU, where he held several key roles, including Associate Vice President for Research, Interim Vice President, and ultimately Vice President for Research. Later, Ray became FSU's Director of Federal Relations, leading the university's federal and congressional relations efforts. Throughout his career, he testified before U.S. congressional committees more than 100 times. Since his retirement in 2014, Ray has continued to offer his expertise through consulting for universities and the private sector. Tom Dyson. Tom is a native of Tallahassee and serves as the market president for Hancock Whitney Bank. In this role, he provides leadership and management oversight for the bank, as well as strategic initiatives across the Big Bend. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Alabama, and they've already talked about the football, so leave Tom alone. An MBA from Florida State University, and is a graduate of the Graduate School of Banking at Louisiana State University. An active member of the community, Tom is a leadership Tallahassee alumnus, serves on the board for the Greater Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce, and is a member of the Tallahassee Exchange Club. And again, Hancock serves as our sponsor today. And last but not least, Hula Butler. She's also a native of Tallahassee and has a BSBA degree in finance from the University of West Florida. Her passion for helping young people with their finances began, I thought it was a mistake, but during high school and then college with Mile Financial Group. Upon graduating, she returned to Tallahassee to pursue her career, where she developed a strong affinity for supporting small businesses and understanding their unique challenges. Hula currently serves as the controller at Vivas Funeral Home, where she finds fulfillment in assisting Rocky Vivas and his team. She has been actively involved in the Tallahassee Chamber, American Heart Association, and has served on the council of the Holy Mother of God Greek Orthodox Church, co-chairing the Greek Food Festival, which is coming up, right? What's the date? October 25th and 26th. October 25th and 26th. Let's give our head table a round of applause. So at this point, we normally introduce our featured speaker. However, on behalf of our club board of director, Chair Marion Hoffman, and I want to take a moment to honor one of our club members. This member has no idea about this honor that is about to be bestowed on them. As a bit of background, it's been 3 years since we presented the Stan Tate Award. This award is named after a man whose legacy is deeply woven into the fabric of our club. Stan Tate was one of the founding members and a former executive director of our club. He was a driving force behind the growth and prominence of the economic hub of Florida. Throughout his leadership and vision and unrelenting dedication, the club has become a premier platform for engaging discussions on key issues of our time. But the Stan Tate Award is not just a tribute to his remarkable achievement, but a recognition of individuals who embody the same character, class, and compassion that Stan demonstrated throughout his life. We give this award to honor someone who has made exceptional contributions to both our club and community. Someone who puts people first, leads with innovative ideas, acts with integrity, and gives generously of their time, talents, and resources. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our great privilege to introduce this year's recipient of the Stan Tate Award, Dr. Ray Bai. Okay. Before he accepts the award, we want to share just a little bit more. Ray continues to serve as a committed member of our board and is an outstanding volunteer. He has secured great speakers, from today's featured speaker, Assistant Navy Secretary Berger, to securing former General David Petraeus, who presented to the club last year. Ray brings great vision to the Economic Club of Florida and is tireless in the pursuit of world-class speakers, which has helped this club continue to grow. So Ray, we would now want to present the award. No, you don't have to step again, Ray.
Okay, here you go.
Ray, no, he said he doesn't have, Mary and I figured we're gonna say, Ray's not gonna want to say anything. And so, Ray, I'd now like to invite Ray back to the podium to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, guys. It's my pleasure today to have a chance to introduce Honorable Meredith Berger. She is the Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy, Installations, and the Environment. She has the distinction of having the longest title in the federal government. She's been in this position for the last 3.5 years. And the breadth of her responsibilities are really quite impressive. We just touch on a couple of those. Energy and climate resilience. That is certainly a very, very timely topic today in light of the hurricane having just gone through. Infrastructure sustainment, restoration, and modernization. Military construction and environmental protection. Hence, part of our title dealing with energy, installations, and environment. Before her Navy appointment, she has experience in the private sector. She worked for Microsoft. She's worked for other federal agencies, including earlier the Department of the Navy, as well as the Environmental Protection Agency. She has worked in the state government, including right here in Tallahassee, or the Chief Financial Officer of the state of Florida. She's been a DoD fellow and worked in for another Secretary of the Navy prior to the current incumbent. So she's got a broad background in that area. Educationally, she got a bachelor's degree from Vanderbilt, a master's degree from the Harvard Kennedy School, and a law degree from Nova Southeastern. I was going to welcome her back to Tallahassee, but regretfully, as Katrina mentioned, the weather kept her away. We hope to get her back another time. But I do want to turn it over to her right now and tell her how much we appreciate and looking forward to the opportunity to hear from her today. The Honorable Meredith Berger.
Thank you, Dr. Vine. Congratulations on your recognition today. What an exciting thing to get to see, at least remotely. And while I regret leaving a seat open at what sounds like a fantastic head table, I'm grateful that at least I could fill up the space that you all intended at your luncheon today. So thank you for having me here. I know we talked about safety. There was a fear that I might get out. And as you mentioned, I have a few things I'm supposed to do and take care of, including some of the installations and the people there that are responding to the storm impacts. And so it is regretful for a number of reasons, but very glad to spend the time with all of you. And so I'll start with a thank you. Thank you for the time that I get to spend with you all today. I know that you had reached out to the Secretary of the Navy, Carlos Del Toro. He is a former small business owner, and he's the kind of leader that certainly knows how to divide and conquer. So when he saw that he wasn't able to accept your kind invitation, he also saw the opportunity that is inherent in spending time with you, and he was nice enough to give this one to me. He knows that I love my home state of Florida, and this trip would have been a really special one for me. I've got family, I've got friends, and I am the very proud sponsor of the USS Fort Lauderdale, which, in case you heard differently, is in fact the best ship in the entire fleet of the United States Navy. And I lived in Tallahassee, as was mentioned, I worked with the Department of Financial Services. I had these really big plans for a walk through Lafayette Park, some dinner in Midtown, some time at FSU and FAMU. I heard there were some folks from those institutions here today. And I was even gonna sneak in a public sub along the way because Publix is very far from me here. So it is, I don't know how much of this you can see, but this is a sweater. So yes, it is below 70 degrees here in Washington, D.C. So I am in a sweater addressing you all, and it is really with a heavy heart that I'm on a screen instead of with you all in person, especially as we begin to understand the impact on our great state of Hurricane Milton just after Hurricane Helene, where we are in the M's at the beginning of October, when we would usually be there at the end. This impacts our communities, the people we care about, and critical military installations that fall in their paths. And we've got the better part of 2 months left. So Secretary Del Toro charges the Department of the Navy with 3 enduring priorities. They are to strengthen our maritime dominance, our people, and our partnerships. And it's through these through these priorities that the Secretary harnesses the weight and the consequence of naval power through his concept of maritime statecraft. This is where the environment, the economy, and the military come together to create advantage and maintain our geopolitical role and order. Now, in my role as Assistant Secretary of the Navy, I support these via my 3 C's, communities, critical infrastructure, and climate action. So communities, this is about our people. We're around the globe. Our sailors, our Marines find a welcome home to live and to serve. And this is especially true across the Sunshine State. These are the ecosystems that allow us to survive and thrive, succeed and achieve the economies that support our way of life. It's where our values that we hold and defend reside. It's the institutions you're a part of, regions, cities, towns. It's where we lead and serve, where our bases and environment that surrounds them and supports them are. Next, critical infrastructure. At the Department of the Navy, we think of this as the means to our ends. These are our ports, natural and man-made structures, roads and runways, barracks and depots, utilities, energy and water that connect us, sustain us, prepare us, and ultimately protect us. And for the sake of our communities and our critical infrastructure and the investments and people that are a part of both, we focus on the 3rd C, which is climate action. We consider this a warfighting advantage, a tactical and strategic enabler, and significantly a conflict deterrence. Now I'm going to address these a little bit out of order because I've already spent a little bit of time on hurricanes. And so I'll share with you something that the Admiral in charge of the state and the region sent to me, and it's from a Florida-based meteorologist, Noah Berger. And he said this as Hurricane Milton was gaining strength. He said, "This is nothing short of astronomical." This is a quote from the meteorologist. "I'm at a loss for words to meteorologically describe to you 897 millibars of pressure with 180 mile per hour max sustained winds and gusts of 225 miles per hour. This is now the 2nd strongest hurricane ever reported by pressure on this side of the world. The eye is tiny at nearly 3.8 miles wide. This hurricane is nearing the mathematical limit of what Earth's atmosphere can produce." Yes, there is a mathematical limit, and we are nearing that. So for the Navy, for the Marine Corps, the Atlantic hurricane season is a battle rhythm. It's a cadence that we know all too well. On November 30th, at the conclusion of the season, sailors and Marines assess the impact to mission, to resources, equipment, facilities, manpower, and continue to work and respond and recover from the damage that happens during the season. And then they've got a watchful eye ahead towards the next June 1st. And I know I'm talking to a room full of Floridians, so you know that feeling. And this is just a sliver. It's a threat that we see that's not bound necessarily by geography, season, or time. It happens in other parts of the world too. Just last year, we watched Super Typhoon Moar go like that. From a tropical storm to a Category 4, and we just saw the same thing with Hurricane Milton over the past few days. In that instance with the typhoon, we watched it approach Guam and the Northern Marianas, a critical region for the Department of the Navy, and in fact, the whole Department of Defense, but what we refer to as Joint Region Marianas. In a protocol that I know you all know in your sleep, ahead of the storm, we protected our critical infrastructure, secured systems, moved our platforms, everything from cars to ships to aircraft, and we sheltered our infrastructure the best we could so we could get the power back on. Our community, both inside and outside the fence line, because that's how a defense community works, prepared fresh water, charged devices, aggregated supplies, and then you just sit and wait. And just like you all are seeing across Florida right now, and we'll probably see a little bit more of, the storm brought torrential rain, storm surge, sustained really powerful gusts of wind, leaving widespread parts of that community without power. And whether it was a family or a first responder, everyone kind of finds themselves in the same place in terms of resources. And it's impactful to us, and I know something that will resonate with you. It affects our resourcing and the way that we can actually invest in budget and be able to operate with impact with the dollars allocated to us. We're still determining funding for the impacts in Guam, and we'll start to count for what we saw in terms of impacts from Helene, Milton, and those that will come through the rest of the storm. Now that is the speed, weight, and impact of a pretty unpredictable and formidable adversary. Science for us informs security, and it dictates our mission. At the Department of the Navy, and in fact, across the entire Department of Defense, above all else, we are mission driven. We meet mission, we execute mission, we succeed at the mission. That is your military. But in order to meet and execute mission, we need to be ready. And this is a term of art in military circles, but in case it hasn't come up for you all, this essentially means that in the case of the Department of the Navy, sailors and Marines have what they need to do what we are asking of them at the moment that they need to be able to do it. So this is training, equipment, everything coming together to make sure that they are successful. But we're seeing some threats get in the way of that. And so as we think about climate change and whatever term you want to assign to the impact that we're seeing, so extreme weather, heat, drought, floods, resource scarcity. This is a national security threat for us. It's a threat that we take seriously, and we are on the front lines of it. We have a strategy to look at how we are going to take action. It's called Climate Action 2030. And we are looking across the we're looking across the conflict continuum so that we're able to build a more capable, agile, and lethal fighting force. We do this by building resilience. This is ensuring that our forces, systems, facilities can continue to operate effectively and make mission undeterred by interruption, whether that is caused by the threat of changing climate conditions, or that you have infrastructure that is degraded, impacted, or otherwise seeing some of those effects. We are reducing the threat. We're looking at how to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and draw down the gases to stabilize ecosystems, and we will achieve net zero emissions by 2050, which is a national mandate that we are held to as one of the departments in the federal government. We do this because it creates every advantage that we possibly can in our operating environment. Now, it is not only on our bases or at home, but when we see these impacts, climate change makes the world a more volatile place, and a more volatile world calls on the Navy and the Marine Corps. We know these as humanitarian assistance and disaster relief missions. By Title 10, the Marine Corps is your crisis response force for the military, and the Navy is there with ships and supplies, and this is how you see humanitarian assistance and disaster relief at work through your naval forces. But when we get these calls, we are seeing more of them because of these impacts from climate change, and we are also seeing an impact to our ability to respond because of the way it is impacting our operational environment. So as we look at this, it really is a threat that knows no bounds. And so we are having to figure out how to respond at every point. We're focused on this decisive decade where we are mindful of a pacing threat that shapes our mission. and a climate threat that shapes how we operate, execute, and succeed in support of that mission. And so in every possible way, we need to be hardened and survivable against this threat. And in order to succeed, we need to be better than everyone else. That is that advantage. And so we're looking at it through a lens of sustainability. And I'll share with you that for the Department of the Navy, this is much broader than environmental stewardship or any considerations that you might immediately associate with climate. This is also investment, this is financing, this is acquisition. And as a whole, it is looking out for the next sailor and Marine to ensure that that person has what the current sailor and Marine has or better to be able to accomplish that mission set. And that's how we're looking at sustainability. It's an integral part of our calculus for mission and success, because we need to make sure that we can keep going without compromise. On the battlefield, this creates time to think, space to maneuver. You can anticipate to create a degree of mission certainty and then take off the plate all of our knowns so that there is room to react with precision to the unknowns and unanticipated. It's a concept that's foundational to the way that we operate, and it is purposefully woven in to the way that we are approaching everything. Another one that we're thinking a lot about that I know that all of you in Florida know well is extreme heat. It puts the body under extreme stress so that our troops can't exercise, causing what we call black flag days, where it is so hot and so dangerous to undergo prescribed training that our people can't function and our platforms can't function under the heat. It puts our power supplies at risk, our critical infrastructure that we rely on to ensure that we can access the information and tools that we need may not function. And as a result, both our critical infrastructure and mission can end up under duress. I know that this is just a little bit of a distance away from Florida, but it's something that I think will resonate with you in terms of the way that California has taken on this challenge. In what's become a regular occurrence around Labor Day every year in San Diego. And this is a place that we have both Navy and Marine Corps installations. We have seen record-breaking temperatures of above 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's caused record-breaking demands on the grid of more than 50,000 megawatts. But in order to prevent those disruptions, we've partnered with the city there so that at the port of San Diego, the Navy unplugs all 20 ships there from the grid so that they operate on their own power. And then at the Marine Corps Air Station at Miramar, the base shifts from the commercial grid to a microgrid so that we can actually manage off of stored power instead of putting that strain on the grid. This happened more than 10 times over the last summer, and we see that pretty consistently. But what it did was make sure that this defense community was able to keep the lights on, the business on, hospitals running. Nobody was fearing any sort of impact from a brownout. And then critically for the nation and for the Navy and the Marine Corps, the lights stayed on for mission. The flight line, everything that those naval bases and Marine Corps bases were doing were uncompromised because of stored energy that we were able to use to create relief from the commercial grid. So it makes us not only good neighbors, but good warfighters. Energy security means mission assurance for us. And so we're looking at diversification of our energy portfolio. It is best when we have reliable, redundant energy. And so we are bringing everything into the fold. I wanted to share with this group some exciting news that we actually just put out a request for information from the Department of the Navy to explore the use of nuclear power to support our energy security at our installations and the surrounding communities. We are really excited to think about how we can integrate this power source into our portfolio. And so I will share with you all just to make sure that you have a link to the solicitation, but eager to see where we might be able to create these kinds of partnerships with private partners. And very excited to see the response. They're due November 7th for the first round, and then we'll have a request for proposal out next, which will be targeted based on the feedback that we get from the initial solicitation. We're looking at electrification, both in our installations and in our vehicles. It makes us more secure and independent. Electric vehicles and renewable battery packs give us a warfighting advantage too. It allows us to be quieter, less discoverable, and advanced technology and sustainable sources of energy and fuel allow us to stay on station and focused on mission longer. And I couldn't quite hear, but I think I heard that we have a retired naval aviator in the audience. And so that is a place that we're looking at how we can keep that focus on mission, on station longer, making that fuel at military specification and the technology that will help us to use it more effectively and efficiently so that logistics isn't the thing that holds us up when we are actually engaged. Less reliance on fuel also keeps our people safe. We learned a very, very hard lesson in Iraq and Afghanistan. For every single, for every 50 convoys of fuel, we had a Marine who was killed or wounded. And to me, that's not good enough. If somebody raises their hand and says, I am going to put myself in harm's way on behalf of our country, it is my job to make sure that every single harm I can prevent is one that we do prevent. And so this diversification of how we use energy and fuel is certainly a way to do that, because it saves lives, and those are precious lives. So we are taking every opportunity to make sure that we are taking action that is sustainable, investments that are sustainable, research that supports our sustainability, so that near-term decisions and investments and policy ensure our near-term success and our long-term advantage. As far as infrastructure, we're focused on sustainable building design and facility decarbonization. We have so many renovation, modernization, sustainment, and new construction projects that are planned and more in design. We're incorporating technology and material, clean energy and electrification, and making sure that everything that we are putting into what we are building is more efficient and more weather resistant. In fact, we're very eager to learn from Kitson and Partners down at Babcock Ranch, the Orlando area community that keeps surviving hurricanes and keeping the lights on. Seems like a place we could learn a thing or two as we consider how to make our coastal installations resilient. So that is a place that I've been reading a lot about. Outside of Florida, but significant to our national security mission, we are also recapitalizing our public shipyards. And so as we're doing that, we are incorporating leading edge designs for that sustainable material that is going to be resilient against everything from hurricanes to earthquakes, and making sure we are incorporating things like sea level rise, increased flooding into the build and plan, because that is how we will sustain our nuclear fleet. We're creating more net zero energy installations. You've got neighbors to the north in Albany, Georgia, at the Marine Corps Logistics Base there, where they have the first of its kind in the entire Department of Defense. It is a net zero energy installation. This means that they are generating more energy than they consume. They are saving hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on a variety of their traditional costs for energy and utilities. And the Marines can rely on that energy supply when we're relying on them to defend the nation. And the community gets that energy too. When we look at water, in order to keep people in our communities healthy and safe, our installations operational, we need to ensure that we can successfully perform those mission sets, and we need access to affordable and safe water supply. The department has set targets and integrative approaches to make sure that we are not under water stress. This is another logistics consideration that is essential to our mission assurance. We look at nature-based solutions. It turns out that nature knows a thing or two about how to defend a coastline. So in Florida, we have mangroves, coral, and other natural structures that help with wave attenuation, preventing coastal erosion and strengthening against the impact of those storms. So we are investing in making sure that those natural elements of defense in depth are present against our installations. At Blen Island over near Jacksonville, the Marines are integrating these types of solutions to protect against that erosion and ensure that they have the training and mission space that they need at that critical installation. Lastly, we're focusing on acquisition and creating the department pathway to make sure that we are incorporating these considerations as requirements as we contract with partners and make acquisitions. It is essential to our combat effectiveness and mission success to make sure that we manage supply chain risks effectively, ensure access to and availability of key equipment, raw materials, supplies, and services in the face of potential disruptions, including those driven by climate change and also resource competition and other adversarial intentions. So we are part of an ecosystem and an economy, and we know our part, and it's my job to make sure that we have every advantage, that we protect our investments and that we keep our people safe, and above all else, prioritize mission. We are making the conscious and strategic choice to make sure that the Navy and the Marine Corps, its people, installations, and platforms are survivable against present threats. And we're proactively planning for the future environment in which we will operate and succeed. Our adversaries are doing the same. Every day in every environment, the Department of the Navy supports its primary mission to recruit, train, and equip, and organize and deliver the combat-ready naval forces that you expect for the nation. These forces campaign, deter, and as necessary, fight and win conflicts and wars through sustaining forward presence as the world's dominant naval force. And that starts and endures with playing it smart at every step. A sustainable approach and way forward, supporting sailors and Marines of today and anticipating the ever increasingly challenged operational environments of the sailors and Marines of tomorrow, so that when they pick up the watch, they continue the mission without compromise, always ready. Thank you for your support of our sailors and Marines and the work of the Department of the Navy. I will be very glad to take any questions that you might have, and I will pause here and look forward to some conversation.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Let's start with the microphone if there are questions.
Madam Secretary, my name is David Micah, and I want to first thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for being with us today. Enjoyed your presentation quite a bit. Something that I didn't hear about, and I come from a background in the energy industry, is if the Navy and the Department of Defense, as we harden our infrastructure, how much interest is placed on underground utilities and the expanse of that? It is costly, of course, but it certainly reaps a lot of benefits. And I just wonder if our investor-owned utilities and others, municipal governments, are doing full cost accounting of the cost associated with the loss of power. Certainly, it's a big deal in hardening our grid, but I'm wondering if you're familiar with any studies that DoD or Navy has done in that regard, or if that's something that will be part of your planning going forward.
Yes, that is a critical consideration and extremely important. Buried utilities are a way to protect against those disruptions, which I know is something that you all are facing right now. As far as specific studies, I couldn't point you to any, but I am very glad to double check that and see. But what I can tell you is that has been part of my conversation recently as we look for some of the immediate accounting of where we saw impact and where we anticipate a cost, both in terms of the dollar value of repair, the dollar value of time and operation, and training lost. And then also affiliating that to where the power loss comes from. So if you can't access information or material, or tools or systems, then that's going to be all rooted back to the power loss as well. So yes, that is a critical consideration to getting to that. Second, I mentioned reliability of our power supply. And I'll give you another example where it is quite useful and applicable. Not as much something that comes up in Florida, though maybe the Everglades a little bit. But with wildfires, this was a lesson that we saw coming out of the wildfires in Maui as well. Part of the challenge there was that the energy was burned through by the power being above ground. And so in some cases, people didn't get the warning because the power wasn't available. There was also confusion about whether it was a tsunami coming or a wildfire. So there was some safety education certainly there as well. But through partnership with the Hawaiian Electric Company in Hawaii at our land at Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, we've actually been able to partner through an enhanced use lease with a partner, Amoresco there, who can provide the infrastructure. And one of our main considerations as we look at those projects together is to make sure that energy is buried, so that heaven forbid there is another wildfire or a storm that comes through or anything else, we can guarantee a greater degree of protection for that energy source. And so that is something that we're incorporating as we partner and move forward. Guam is another place that we look to think about how to get some of that energy underground.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bonnie?
Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, for your comments. So 2 questions. Number 1, curiosity has the best of me. What is the significance of the pennant that's framed behind you? And number 2, I think that since you're familiar with Tallahassee, you know we have an innovation park. FSU has a magnetic propulsion program out there, which I think is funded by the Navy. And could you share with us some updates on how that program is going and how it fits into some future plans?
Yes, so I will say I'm gonna tee off a little bit and say that the Matt Lab seem to have taken you guys off the hurricane path again, so the luck prevails. Just to get a Tallahassee joke in there, and then thank you for asking about the pennants. It is a really neat piece of naval history. And so what is behind me is the "What the hell" pennant. And so, and I may or may not be known to utter that phrase from time to time. And so an enterprising member of my team said, "I think I know exactly the way to decorate your office. Let's call it the History and Heritage Command." But it is a really interesting story because it comes from the 1930s. And our naval forces were engaged in conflict and energy, and the enemy ship had kind of helped people on an island, and it was impossible to be able to get to the island to set those folks free. And so they were trying to figure out, how can we distract them? How can we figure out what to do? And so the skipper's wife actually read this, and so that, and everyone on ships is communicating via flags. And so this guy went up and everyone said, what the hell? Because nobody knew what they were trying to, what they were trying to communicate. But they were distracted enough to be able to achieve the mission at hand. And so, this is actually the original "What the hell" pennant, from that little victory. So early deception operations, hanging in my office. So, that is that. Thank you for asking. It is one of my favorite things. And then secondly, in terms of the innovation park, I would have to get you specifics on that. So I'm gonna see if my folks can make sure to get your contact information just to provide you in detail. But more broadly, and one of the things that I was very sad to miss was I was going to get to go to the School of Engineering at Florida State. And FAMU and see some of the incredible research that's going on in terms of wind tunnels and other innovative elements that are actually helping us to figure out how to operate better. And so as I'm looking forward to coming back to visit for sure. It is really one of my favorite places. But in the meantime, we have been kind of doing steady investments, especially in terms of energy, and making sure that we are looking to university centers of excellence, both the students and the professors who are taking the time to focus on the anticipatory nature of some of the work that they're doing. And so it is in the CAPS program that we've been doing some investing to make sure that we're driving forward on some of our energy programming. And then more broadly through the engineering school and some of the labs, there is what I at least have read and I'm looking forward to learning at some point firsthand, some of the research that's going on there to see how we can operate, especially with some of our aviation work. But I would be glad to get you more detail as well, since I don't have it handy.
Well, thank you, Assistant Secretary Berger, for pivoting to this platform. We know your preference and our preference too, but we can't do anything about natural disasters. So this really worked out well. We appreciate your insights. We do have a token of appreciation that we will mail to you. And I want to
Thank you.
You're welcome. Before we close out, again, acknowledge Ray By. I really wish I had a camera I could have taken it. His facial expression was priceless, right? Okay. But he is so deserving, and we will see you all on November 21st at the Dunlap Champions Club. This meeting is adjourned, and have a good afternoon.